Thank you so much for having me, and I'm here today to talk to you about the new frontier, education's Wild West. I want to talk to you about cyber charters. It's a movement that I believe exemplifies a shift in society, away from understanding public schools as a public good, and toward understanding public schools as a private commodity or a private choice. I want to start by asking you, what do you think public schools ought to look like? In your mind, when you think about it, maybe you think about this. Well, actually, that's what public schools do look a lot like, right? We go according to bells, we move from class to class, we learn how to be laborers. We don't learn a lot of creativity, but this is a sort of factory model. And that factory model has been around for a long time, and it's held on for a long time. Maybe we should have other models. Maybe we should think about things that are field trips, hands-on, or outside, playing in the recess time.
Brady should.
Or maybe we need to think about this image. Now the question is this image okay with you? Single child, single computer. Because that's how thousands of children will log on tomorrow morning, Monday morning, for their education. So it's a very different image than what we're used to. Now I believe that schools should change. I've spent my career focused on how schools can change. I've talked about re-engaging boys in the elementary level by using games. I've talked about how to engage stakeholders in broad conversations about school change. I believe that schools need to change. And cyber charters may be a big shift away from the factory model of schooling in the Industrial Revolution. So this is a big change. I do understand the need to save every child. I'm very much understanding that schools need to change because we each need to be able to see advancement. I understand that for my own 3 children. I want them to have the best education they can, and they're very different children. So I understand the desire to want to be able to choose the best education for my child. But what is left behind when we make those choices, when we make those personal, private choices, instead of thinking about the public good? In the Wild West, Pa Ingalls used to play the fiddle for Laura, and there was a wonderful folk song that said, "For other nations must remember, Uncle Sam is not a fool, where the people do the voting and the children go to school." We understood at one time in our history the need for the public school to serve the public good. Social equality, social advancement and mobility, these were the issues that we understood were central to public schools. Cyber charters are a new frontier. They are a big departure from what we've been doing. There are a lot of questions about them, and I want to talk a little bit about where they come from, who's attending them, how the money's moving through them, what questions I'm really struggling with. Cyber charters, for those of you who've never heard of them before, are public schools. Anyone may attend, and they're delivered 100% online. So this means that while you may have a class that starts at 9 o'clock on Monday morning in social studies that has a real teacher and you're all networked together, most of your material is delivered through the internet. You will be taking these classes at home primarily. This means that somebody at the elementary level who wants to cyber charter must have a parent who's able to stay home with them. This eliminates some options for some of us. Cyber charters must follow all legal guidelines and be accredited in the state that they exist in. They have to follow state testing. There are both local and national cyber charters, and they usually have a curriculum that runs anywhere from K to 12. So we're talking about K to 12 education here. They are paid for by our tax dollars. The growth in cyber charters has been astronomical. In the year 2000, 40,000 students were taking at least one course online. Now, these 40,000 students are not all in cyber charters. They were taking at least one course online. Maybe they were in a rural school district and they needed a Latin class and they didn't have a Latin teacher, or they wanted an AP course. In 2002, that number jumps to 300,000. In 2009, that number jumps to 1.5 million nationwide, taking at least one class online. And in 2010, 4 million students logged in to some form of online learning. Of those 4 million, 250,000 in this country are enrolled full-time in online cyber charter from K to 12. 250,000. So if you've never heard of this movement before, you will. Of those 250,000, 40,000 come from the state of Pennsylvania. We have struck out across the Wild West. We are pulling out our covered wagons. We're ready to go for this new frontier. Pennsylvania has 12 cyber charter schools. One, I believe, is defunct. The other 11 are all in various stages of accreditation and so forth. We have more students in Pennsylvania than most other states. So out of 250,000 students, 50 states, you do the math, we've got 40,000. So Pennsylvania is on the leading edge of this. Who are these children? Well, they tend to be sort of what we call a bimodal distribution, two groups. They tend to be students who are struggling. Perhaps they are easily distracted in the classroom, and so an online setting seems like a good choice for them. They might be Olympic hopefuls or actors or actresses, or children who are very highly gifted and aren't getting what they need from the public school. There are a lot of questions that remain unanswered about cyber charter schools. Kathy Cavanaugh is perhaps the best-known scholar in this area, but the most recent study that came from the Educational Policy Research Institute indicated that we do not have answers to the most fundamental questions of whether cyber charters are as good as, better than, or worse than traditional schooling. We don't have answers to whether these schools have more or less cheating happening in them. We don't know whether this is a way to use public funds to allow us to insert religion into education, to eliminate the separation of church and state. There are a lot of questions. The one that I'm most interested in is the money. And when we went across the great Northwest and we settled the plains, there was also a gold rush. A lot of people got very wealthy, and a lot of that is happening now in cyber charter schools. When you sign up for a cyber charter school, you're sent several boxes of materials: a computer, an internet connection. You get a check, a stipend every month for your internet connection. All of your materials are provided, including a wide variety of markers and pens and pencils. For those of us who went out in the fall and bought $100 worth of materials for our students, this may seem unfair, but it's a public school. All children must attend. And because cyber charters have such a wide reach, they have to take into account that many people may not be able to afford anything. So they send them everything. That's how they use part of the money. Where does the money come from? It comes from all of us. It comes from our tax dollars, but more specifically, it comes from the district that actually the child was originally attending. When they leave to go for the cyber charter, then that district has to send a check for the cyber charter. I'll give you an example. I think this will make it more clear. This is Sunnydale School, and Susie starts Sunnydale School, and she goes the first 2 or 3 years, kindergarten, first and second grade. She decides that she's not really so happy with Sunnydale, and her parents decide to pull her out. Her mother quits her job, decides to stay home with her, and they're going to join a cyber charter. It costs about $10,000 a year to educate a child like Susie at Sunnydale. So when Susie makes this decision, $10,000 check is written from Sunnydale to the cyber charter. It might go to K-12 Inc., or it could go to the Pennsylvania Leadership Cyber Charter, or it could go to Agora, Connections Academy. These are all large cyber charters in the state of Pennsylvania, but it's a public school, so the money follows Susie. Now, the state gives $3,000 of that back to the school district, saying that we're going to incentivize you to allow these cyber charters to exist by giving you $3,000 back. So about 30% of every dollar that's sent goes back to the district. All right. Now, some people would say that's fair to Sunnydale because Sunnydale has failed her. The problem is, think about the kids that are left behind. At Sunnydale School now, they can't turn off the lights. They can't stop busing kids into the school. They can't fire a teacher because Susie is not there. They still have to pay for art, music, gym, etc. So they really haven't saved anything. They've lost a lot of money. Okay, how big a problem is this? It's an enormous problem. In 2008, $600 million left Pennsylvania schools who are already struggling with budget deficits of their own, and that $600 million went to cyber charters. In 2010, that number will go up, if my clicker will allow me to $1 billion. That's the estimate. You can imagine that the superintendents are screaming about this. And our governor has decided that he no longer wants to chip that 30% back in. What do the cyber charters do with this money? Obviously, they send all the materials and they hire teachers. But cyber charters are run by CEOs as opposed to superintendents. And while they have to remain nonprofit, they do like to show profit and loss because they're part of a grand experiment in marketplaces and the way that marketplaces work in large governmental bureaucratic organizations. So they want to prove that it can be done more cheaply. So it is a nonprofit, but it's very important that they show these profits and losses. Here's the little secret that nobody wants you to know. Cyber charters must remain nonprofit, but curriculum developers are for-profit. And the same organization can run a cyber charter and a curriculum development company. That's where the money is. That's where the gold rush is. So they're shipping off the materials to the cyber charter, and they're locked into this. They don't get to choose Scholastic, Houghton Mifflin. They take a particular cyber charter developer's materials. Best example of this is K-12 Inc. K-12 Inc. as a corporation, not its nonprofit cyber charter, but as a corporation, made $400 million last year. Their CEO made $2.6 million. The next time you're angry at a teacher for having a $40,000 salary and a cushy union contract, think about this fellow who's got $2.6 million of public money for his salary from the curriculum development portion of this enterprise. And they try to maintain about a 50-to-1 student-to-teacher ratio. They are taking the labor out of a labor of love. The money is leaving the system. We need to think about the ways in which we are not privileging the public good in our public schools. This money needs to be very carefully accounted for. We need better oversight. We need better understanding of how all the money is moving through there. We'd better circle our wagons and figure out what we want schools to be. Are they to serve our highest aspirations as individuals? Or do we want them to serve our greatest ideals as a whole society? Now, for about a month, I've been trying to figure out what image do I use to convey public good. It's such an abstract concept. How do I get people to understand what I mean? And on Friday night, it came to me. We took our children to the vigil on Friday evening, and I realized this is the public good. These are people coming together for the betterment of everyone, not for their own individual gains. You know, we all brought our own candles that day, our own diversity, our own selves, but each of us had one candle. That's what the public good is about. Please, I ask you today, as you leave this hall, take with you our sacred trust to make sure that public schools continue to stand for the public good. Thank you.